everybody, it's Jilla Webb, and I'm back with season 2 of podcasting and answering lots of questions that I get from my students weekly about music industry things and vocal things and just how to navigate this world. And since it's January and we're all making resolutions and we're thinking about new things and ways to be better in our new year and our coming new year, it's a new semester, I thought I would talk about stress-free practicing because everybody wants to make practicing more stress-free, right? And I'm doing this actually now because if you live with someone or you live around someone like I do, I've been in the industry all my life and mostly I'm in and out of cities. So I have, I live in apartments or, townhomes or things like that where I share walls or I share floors with somebody. I live in hotels with, adjoining rooms and people around you all the time. And how do you make your practice feel comfortable to you and feel like you're not annoying everybody else? Because let's face it, when you're singing high Cs, it can be annoying, especially if we're practicing or if you're doing, vocal exercises that don't sound good. People are like, what are you doing? But you have to do those things. So I'm going to do this now for you all because I am going through the same thing. And I wanted to give you some advice and some tips that you can use. I have used these things my life, and most of the time I have had no problems with people that I've lived with or neighbors surrounding people or neighbors in hotels, front desks will call you. Here are my tips for a stress-free practice. But before I even go into tips on what to do with surrounding people, the first thing that you have to know is that people are just going to hear you. People are just going to hear what you're doing, and they're sometimes going to say things to you about it and sometimes not. Here's the thing. Here's the deal. People that don't sing don't know about singing and about practice. And sometimes they like to, it sounds weird. They don't understand what we're doing. You have to do it anyway. You have to develop a bit of a thick skin in this industry, and you just have to expect that it's coming. If it doesn't, then great. But if it does, you just blow it off and you go on because you need to practice and you need to keep building and protecting your instrument. So if people, say things or walk by or whatever, you just keep going. Okay, so first, you can't practice in your head voice or that doesn't really do you any good, right? You have to practice full out. It'd be like doing a sport or something, playing football or dancing, and you just mark it. You just walk over to the spot. That doesn't do you any good, and it's the same thing with singing. Like if you get up on the stage and you haven't practiced the way you're going to perform, then it's not going to feel the same in your voice because it's a muscle, will not respond the same. So you have to sing full out, and it's really good to have a practice room where you have a mirror so you can watch the things that your body is doing because you're not singing from a pair of vocal cords. You're singing from your whole body. Your whole body is your instrument. You are not a bunch of parts. You are a whole thing in an environment, and you must take all of that into consideration when you're practicing, which is why we're talking about environment today. Okay, if you have a neighbor or a roommate, you might want to ask them if there is a better time for you to practice, like when they're not home. Is there a time where they're at work or they're at classes? The things that you want to avoid are like, are they going to come home and take a nap? Or do they have a child? If you live in an apartment building, you may have a child next door. That child may take a nap. Like, when are those times? Be a good neighbor, right? Agree on hours of the day and agree on how long you'll practice at one time. Because a 2-hour practice when there's lots of loud things might be too much or a little annoying. So maybe you want to practice an hour at a time or 30 minutes 4 times a day within like noon to 5 or within 3 to 8. You want to stop your practices early so that you're not interfering with somebody else's life. Also, if you live in a house, so maybe there's a backyard or a porch or some other place in the house where, you say, look, I'm going to practice for an hour. If you don't want to be disturbed, maybe try, going outside or going to the porch or going out to the backyard, sit, take a book. It won't be so loud. I'll only practice for an hour. I've got 45 minutes and then I'm done. You could suggest that they use headphones, noise canceling headphones, if they have to do something. They could watch TV or listen to music with, headphones, some kind of something that they're listening to that they're not really listening to you. Makes you feel better, makes them feel better. Another thing that helps are rugs, right? Especially if you've got hardwood floors, like buy rugs because it soaks up the sound. You can also use like blankets on the walls or get tapestries. They look really cool. But closets are a great place to practice because you already have a lot of clothes in there that's soaking up a lot of the sound. I used to record a lot of things in my closet. I would just put, extra pillows and extra blankets and try and, deaden up the room. So that's another thing that you can do. If you have an office space or like a rehearsal room at school, go in early, stay a little bit later, schedule your rehearsal time around the times when everybody's going to be there. Give yourself some time. And again, you want to be scheduling your rehearsal because this is something important to you. This is your life. You have to schedule that first. Okay, another thing you can do is you could go to a music store. They usually have rooms that they have teachers in. Maybe there's a time when nobody's teaching. Music stores, generally, their big teaching hours are after school because they generally teach younger students. So maybe there's a time earlier in the day where you could say, hey, can I rent this room from you for 20 or 25 bucks or whatever? I need to practice and I need a room to practice in and I don't have one where I live. They might be willing to do that. So ask. Doesn't hurt to ask. There are also places in your cities where you live, some of you, where it's actually built for musicians to come in and rehearse. There are rehearsal spaces that you can rent. Some people have recording studios. Maybe you could rent, you could go into the main room of a recording studio and say, hey, I know you don't have anybody booked for this time. Could I come in and practice? There's also friends and family. Like ask people who you know and say, hey, I really need a place to practice where I can sing full out and play, and I need to check all these sounds on my amp, and it's disturbing to the people. Is there a time when you guys aren't home where I could come in and sing loud and play loud? Is there a time that you could do that? Another thing that you can do is you can go outside. Okay, if you have nowhere else to go, you can go outside. You can go for a walk. You can find a parking lot. You can go to a lake. You can go to a park, and you can sing. Put one headphone in, one headphone out so you can hear yourself and sing and do your exercises. My least favorite option is in your car, okay? And here's a couple reasons why. You're sitting, you're not standing. Most of the time, we are standing when we're performing. It's a little bit easier to breathe if you're just learning correct breathing mechanics. A little bit easier when you stand to learn and get those things correct in your motor skills. Two, honestly, the wind chill is close. And if you sing really loud, it's going to bounce back at you. Then it's going to feel and sound really loud. And it might feel a little claustrophobic. I mean, the steering wheel is right there. You really can't move. So sometimes that makes it weird for singers singing and practicing in cars. The other thing that you really have to watch for is, does the headrest on your seat, does it push your head forward? Because then again, all of the really good habits that you're trying to build, if you are doing any of the Alexander work in the classes, you know that sort of head forward, turtle singing thing that I call it is really, really detrimental for your voice. So you really have to be careful about your posture when you're sitting in the car. And then that leads me to another postural thing, is that when we sit, we do tend to slump. And as you know, singing and slumping are not a good combination. So you really have to watch, your posture when you are in the car trying to sing. But the biggest reason I hesitate to say practice in your car is because a lot of people do this when they're driving. And your attention should be on your driving, not your singing when you're going someplace. So the option is find a parking lot somewhere. If you're on the road, find a Buc-ee's. They have ginormous parking lots. Park way out away from people and sit, turn your engine off, and do your exercises. Those are things that have helped me through the years. I want to say a couple of words about hotels, because clearly I've been on the road for years and years and years, and you will have to do this. So if you're on the gig, you can and should absolutely start your warm-ups in your hotel room. But you could start with things that aren't loud, like take a really long, hot, steamy shower where you can breathe in lots of good steam. That's the place where you can start your humming, maybe some of your motorboats. When you get out, you can do your stretching and your breathing exercises. You could do some light warm-ups like humming and motorboats outside, then something that's not really loud. Then see if you can get to the venue early and get backstage, and then really do the rest of your warm-ups in your green room or wherever you have to do, wherever you can make lots of noise, because stages are used to lots of noise. But if you're going to practice full out, and I've had to do this many, many times, trying to make sure it's in the hours where no one is sleeping, right? And that's generally if you're going to warm up before a gig, but sometimes you have some days off and you want to do some practicing. Try and be, again, aware of, are people around you trying to sleep? Are they listening to television? And you're noticing that your practice is now competing with their television, that volume that's going up and up. So you could also find different places in the hotels. If no one is in the gym, I've gone down to the gym to do my practice. I've gone out into their parking lots, to do things. So just making sure that you are doing everything you can to accommodate and be respectful of other people's space. But there are a lot of tips and a lot of things that you can do, because your practice is your priority, and you should not compromise what you need to do. You just need to find a way to do it that is, good for everyone else around you. So I hope this helps, and let's make this a great new year with great practices and have fun. See you next time.